like to call the meeting to order. Dr. Stroud, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to this month's meeting. Pam, let the record show that all trustees are present. Do we have anybody that would like to address the board? No?
No forms were filled out.
Okay.
Item 1.7, presentations by individuals, groups, and organizations. We have no retirees present tonight. Item 1.7.2, Ms. Grace Haddix, an English instructor, and her EPCC class will make a presentation to the Board of Trustees regarding their study abroad trip with UTEP to Keswick, England.
Wow.
This is so exciting. This is so exciting. Thank you. I have a presentation. And my co-presenter from UTEP is not here yet. He's stuck in traffic, so I hope he gets here soon. My name is Grace Haddix. Thank you so much for allowing me to present to the board and to the administration, faculty, and guests. I'm a little thrown because he's not here. I'm sorry.
You want us to move it until he gets here?
No. If he comes in, he can join me. We are the co-directors of the program. Dr. Schmid is a professor at UTEP. He started the Walking with Wordsworth study abroad in 2014. He contacted me 2 years ago and asked me if I would care to join him. I contacted my dean and Steve Smith, and we got in touch with our legal department, and we've been doing this study abroad together for 2 years. Wow. So we are the co-directors of this program. So the way that we focus this program is through poetry. We're studying Wordsworth, so we go to the north of England, and I guess the guiding principle comes from a poem called Tintern Abbey. And so these are some lines. While I stand here not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with pleasing thoughts, that in this moment there is life and food for future years. And I really hope that you see the pleasure in the students' faces as we go through this. So I'm just going to go through some slides and narrate them. We had classes at UTEP. We meet for 2 hours and 10 minutes for 5 days. We could also do them at UTEP. It's been a little more convenient at EPCC, excuse me. It's been a little more convenient at UTEP. So these are just some pictures from the classes with the EPCC students and the UTEP students. And that's the group picture that we sent to the curator at the Wordsworth Trust. We always send him a picture so he knows who's coming. We work with the Wordsworth Trust for 3 days, 3 full days, 3 long days. And the students get to handle rare texts. They get to learn how to work with these texts. And these are the original letters from Dorothy Wordsworth, her journals, William Wordsworth's books. So these are original texts. You can see Erin, she's holding her chest, the girl with the glasses in the upper right-hand corner. We were a little worried because we thought she was going to cry on the text. And that's a priceless text. They worked with rare books. They worked with several copies of the Prelude. We were also able to build exhibits. The Wordsworth Trust is completely renovating their museum. And they were building a new exhibit, and Jeff Cowton, who is the curator of the Wordsworth Trust, asked us if we would help build the exhibit. So what I thought was, instead of talking about how great this trip is, because I know it's great, I would let the students do the talking. So Sarah Lord was one of our students, and this came directly from her journal, which is part of the assignment for the course. We were able to see laid out before us the prelude from its inception to the final product, which we were told was one of the last times that would be happening for a very long time. The fact that we were even allowed to attempt to have a say in the exhibit Jeff and his team are building is amazing and shows the kind of organization they are and their goals. They're not elitist or snobby, kind of like that, or snobby, but wanting to get Wordsworth out to the general public and not lock these amazing things away for their own eyes to murder, to dissect. And that's actually a quote from the Prelude. We also had several guest speakers while we were in England. Lillian is a hospice nurse who works with poetry to help her nurses cope with end-of-life issues. So she turned out to be a great friend to us. She spent half a day with us at the Wordsworth Trust, and she actually took a group of us hiking. Hardest hike I've ever done in my life. Oh, there he is. Okay, good. So this is Tom Schmid from UTEP.
Hi, apologies for being late.
He's my co-director. Step up. So this is from Sarah, from her journal again. She said, I took a very much needed 2-hour nap and then came down for tea with our guest Lillian. I really found it interesting that she focused mainly on Dorothy Wordsworth and talked about her putting others before herself. As she was admitting to identifying to the trait, I was thinking how much I do as well. Our thoughts synced up in a very serendipitous way. A lot of the things she had to say made me think, and I was grateful to her for sharing such personal details of her life and for her honesty. And this is directly from Sarah's journal. I just copy and pasted it. Would you like to discuss this slide?
Yeah, I would love to. This is one of the things that has come out of the Walking with Wordsworth project that I've been doing since 2014. It's been a real pleasure to be partnering now with EPCC and with Professor Haddix since 2018, so the last 2 years. But one of the things that's come out of the project has been an ongoing grant-funded project through UTEP, actually, on the power of the humanities in the community. And so we've been working with elementary schools in El Paso. And Caitlin Hernandez, one of our students from last year, is actually now at UTEP, and she's on that grant project. And these were letters, actually, that were written and folded according to 18th century style and then sealed with wax that the students at Baron Elementary here in El Paso wrote to Jeff Cowton. He's in the foreground there in the gray pants and the bluish sweater. And he's the curator of the Wordsworth Trust Library. So he's one of the foremost Wordsworth scholars in the world. And it was just wonderful to have it come full circle, to have the Wordsworth Trust teaching us about these archives and about the beauty of these manuscripts, bringing it back to El Paso, working with 5th grade children, having them write back. And then we're doing this, actually, in William Wordsworth's home, the home that he lived in longest. This is Rydalmount, just a couple of miles south of Grassmere in the Lake District. So it's the whole package, right? And we have UTEP and EPCC students here, and we all shared opening up these letters to Jeff and reading them, and Jeff was in tears. He was in tears reading from these kids. They were saying things like, we'd really love to meet you, and you know, my grandmother's enchiladas are something you got to try, and all this kind of thing. And it was really fantastic. So.
And again, I'm sorry, this is a big excerpt, but this is from that day in Sarah's journal. She said, Rydalmount was beautiful, that's the name of the house. She says, as I've come to expect every single place we go, the view out every window is like a painting filled with color and nature. You can tell this is a literature student. She says, the house was interesting with all its little stairs and twists and turns. Reading the letters from the little kids from El Paso brought a little bit of familiarity and home into the Wordsworth's living room. Seeing how much Jeff is emotionally invested with these little ones, identifying with Wordsworth poetry, and poetry in general, made me feel grateful that I would be able to continue that type of work being a Mellon researcher. And Sarah is our new Mellon researcher from EPCC. And she says, actually, the fact that I was lucky enough to get one of those positions has been a great comfort as the trip comes to an end. I don't have to leave Wordsworth behind for long. And this was a picture of the group. This includes, well, did you want to talk about Penny?
Penny Bradshaw is next to me, to my right, to your left in the picture. It's just to the left of me. She's a professor at the University of Cumbria in Ambleside. Again, just a few miles down the pike from here. And she runs a master's degree program, actually, in British Romantic literature and the landscape of Cumbria, the landscape of the Lake District. And so she's a keeper, I think. She was just a fantastic partner. She was in tears reading the letters from the kids, and loved really meeting both the EPCC and the UTEP students.
We were lucky enough to take many excursions. So this was a short hike that we took to the top of Castle Head. So it is mixing poetry, places, and people. We would often take our books with us and read poetry and connect it to the place and the people. And this was a view from Castle Head. We did this one evening after dinner. It was a short hike, and about half the group came. We don't require that all the students do every single physical thing, but if they want to come, they're certainly welcome. And they sign all the waivers, by the way. So.
Want to talk about Hawkshead? Hawkshead Grammar School is where Wordsworth went to school. From 1783 on. It's still there. It actually was a working school, a village school, until I think, I might be wrong on my dates slightly, but into the 70s, the 1970s, actually. And now, of course, it's a museum. So there's our group in front of where Wordsworth went to school, starting when he was 9 years old. And he went from there. That was a feeder school for Cambridge. He went from there to Cambridge.
Do you want to read Sarah's entry?
Sure, this is great. The town of Hawkshead was as beautiful as I expected and filled with friendly people. The view from the front of the church was breathtaking and was one of those spots in time for me. That's a quote from Wordsworth. I was rushed with gratitude that I was right where I was. The fells were misty and green. I bought a postcard and found it very charming, and trusting that all they had was a coin slot in the wall under a sign that read, "Please pay here," and that's it. And this is Esthwaite Water. This is just right by Hawkshead, the village, which is still a very, very small market town. It's tiny. And Wordsworth would sometimes get up at 4 a.m. in the morning when he was 9, 10, 11 years old. He and his brothers and would walk down to the lake before classes started at 6 a.m. So we always try, if we can, weather permitting, to do a sojourn there. This time the weather really caught us by surprise. This squall came up out of nowhere. The rain was pelting in our faces, and I thought, oh gosh, this was only the second day we were there. I thought, we're in real trouble here. The students are going to be miserable. And so I was kind of leading the way, and then I looked around, and the students came up to catch me up, and one of the students says, "This is so Bronte-esque." I thought, okay, we got the right group here, right? They loved it.
Oh, they were laughing.
They're getting in the
running.
yeah. I mean,
they jumped in the lake. It was
their faces here don't show how cold it really was, even in June. So Ullswater and Air Force. You want me to keep talking? I mean.
yeah, because we've got the books out in that picture.
Yeah. This, again, is a place that Wordsworth wrote a poem about. It's an incredibly beautiful, a couple of poems. Ullswater is the site of the famous Daffodils poem, "I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er hills and dales, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils." So we are right in the spot talking about the poem. Those daffodils are all still there. There are thousands of them. They were not in bloom. They bloom early. By the time we got there, but we did a nice reading of the poem by one of the students, and we did a nice discussion of it. And again, just I think emphasizing what I'm sure Professor Haddix has already emphasized, that the whole purpose of this is to connect the poetry to the actual places and to give a kind of enriched feeling for why the poems read the way they do. These are not just random texts. When you read them in an anthology, at a desk somewhere, in a classroom somewhere far away, you might think that, oh, these are just 200-year-old words, they don't mean much to me. When you're actually there, I think it means much more. And Air Force is right near Ullswater. That's a very famous waterfall with this beautiful bridge over this huge, well, yeah, here's some.
That's just us, and then I do have the bridge, a couple of bridges.
Yeah, but there's also the really high bridge, right, over the waterfall, over the cascade. And Wordsworth wrote a sonnet to Air Force, to this place. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Robert Southey, John Keats, even Percy Bysshe Shelley, they all visited these areas. They were already tourist attractions, even 250 years ago,
This is Castle Rig Stone Circle. It's older than Stonehenge. Not quite as impressive, but it's still, still very meaningful. Last year we got to visit it on the summer solstice. So.
Yeah, and Easdale is a beautiful kind of subsidiary valley of Grassmere. It really is Grassmere. Thomas de Quincey famously called it, he said it's like a chancel in a chapel. It's like this little sort of side, corridor off of the main chapel of Grassmere. And it's where, in 1808, some subsistence cottagers named George and Sarah Green hiked over the fells, the mountains, over to Langdale, and got caught in a snowstorm and died on the way back, leaving 8 children orphaned. And Dorothy Wordsworth, William Wordsworth's sister, and William Wordsworth himself wrote a poem. She wrote a journal or a record of the family and how Grassmere Charity pulled together to kind of help that family. I think this also really speaks to the nature of the Grassmere community and the importance of community to the Wordsworths, and that provides a natural bridge for us to talk about the importance of community here in El Paso and here in our lives as well.
Just another hike to Buttermere Lake. So I'm sorry, the views were so beautiful. And the students, this was an easy walk around the lake. We took a little bit more difficult hike. This is from that difficult hike, but it's so beautiful.
She did it too.
Okay. Barely. And this was at Buttermere Lake. We hiked up a little bit to the waterfalls.
Yeah.
So, this is Grassmere, where the Wordsworth Trust is.
Yeah. And one of the things that we talk about on the classes here in El Paso, before we ever get to the Lake District, we have a series of classes with the students. And one of the things we naturally, of course, talk about is the whole history of the picturesque, the beautiful, and the sublime, these romantic period aesthetic categories that were used. So part of what I think Professor Haddix has brilliantly done in this PowerPoint is show the picturesque, the beautiful, and the sublime, right? These mountains of great height, which would be the sublime, these little villages, which would be considered picturesque by people like Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. Grassmere, of course, is where William Wordsworth actually lived for really the rest of his life, from about 1800 till he died in 1850. By the time he died, he was actually in Rydalmount, which is just a couple of miles down, but it's really part of the same area, and there's this grave. And it is where the Wordsworth Trust Library is. I don't know, did you already show the slides of the library? Yes. Yeah, so you've already talked about the value of those historical archival manuscripts, but it's just surpassingly beautiful. I mean, it takes your breath away. Want me to read this one as well? This is our last day here, and I hate that fact. Well, that's good to hear. As professors, right? I haven't even let myself think about leaving as a concrete reality, which seems to help with the pains of the trip ending. I'm not homesick in the least and would be perfectly fine with not going back for a good month or longer. So, yeah, this is Tintern Abbey, of course, and I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky, and in the mind of man, a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Nature never did betray the heart that loved her.
I know, I love those lines. I just wanted to finish with one last slide, and I want you to look closely at his T-shirt. That is Jeff Cowton. He is the curator at the Wordsworth Trust. You've seen him in some other slides. Dr. Schmidt and I always bring him a small gift when we get there, and I brought him an EPCC T-shirt last year, and he ran a 5K. Right? He ran a 5K the Saturday before we left, and he sent us that selfie. And so I just wanted you all to know that EPCC has some street cred in Keswick. And last of all, I just wanted to say why this is such an important program. First of all, UTEP credit for EPCC students who are English majors at EPCC prices. When it transfers to UTEP, it transfers as a junior level English class. I think another benefit is studying with upperclassmen at UTEP. We had 2 graduate students on this trip. And also you have a PhD, and between the 2 of us, we have almost 60 years of teaching experience. Right, it's frightening. We also had, we have 2 Mellon research assistants who have come out of this and have continued to work with the Wordsworth Trust and with Dr. Schmid. So that's our presentation, and I hope we'll have the support of the administration for years to come. We've signed a 5-year agreement, so I hope it keeps going.
I hope so as well, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
I would also just say that I've been just so impressed with not only Professor Haddix, of course, whom I know from way back, but the EPCC students who have held their own in this program splendidly, and that's very gratifying. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have some questions? Okay. I have a question, sir. So how many students participated?
Professor Haddix? Yes.
Last year we had 8 EPCC students. We had 8 EPCC and 3 UTEP, and this year we had 5 EPCC and 8 UTEP. So it's always kind of mixed.
So where do they get the choice to go when they're participating in a class?
Oh, when they're participating, Dr. Schmidt and I tend to recruit from our own classes just because we're thrown together for 10 days and we kind of want to know these students. We don't want to be surprised. And these are also mostly literature students. We have recruited from other classes, though. This year, Dr. Schmidt brought 2 students who were not his, and they were amazing. They were wonderful, very engaged, really, really interesting, smart students. I know that I hate talking dollars and cents, but the price for this is really incredible. It's $1,400. That is a program fee, and it covers housing, all of their meals, and private transportation. They have to buy their plane ticket in addition to that and pay tuition for EPCC. Wow. It's I think the price tag came in this year under $3,000.
Well, thank you. That's a wonderful opportunity for our students.
It is. I wish we could bring more. Our problem is our housing. We just don't have enough room. And there's only 2 of us, and it's always a little nerve-wracking taking care of a lot of students.
Talk about Greta Hall?
I didn't talk about Greta Hall, but...
Yeah. Greta Hall is where Samuel Taylor Coleridge lived. It was his home. It's now run as a self-catering B&B, and so that's the advantage of it. It's beautiful, it's intimate, it's 3 floors. It's actually quite a splendid mansion, but really when we get to around 14 people or so, we're kind of at our limit. You know, this is not a 250-room hotel or something like that. Yeah, so.
Well, thank you. Very much appreciated. Could we have a copy of the PowerPoint? I'd love to go back and reread it.
I can certainly, I can send it to someone. I know that you all have it, but I would be happy to send it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Great job.
Item 1.7.3, optional presentations will be made by the presidents of the Classified Staff Association, the Professional Staff Association, the Faculty Association, and the Student Government Association.
Let me adjust this real quick. Hello. Good evening, members of the board and President Serrata. My name is Alex Rodriguez. I am the president of the Student Government Association for the 2019 and 2020 school year. Alongside me are also members of the Student Government Association for this school year. I have here alongside me Rocio, you guys see her back in action, acting as vice president. I also have Francis Lamboy, who is also serving as parliamentarian. I also have Stan Goss here with me, serving as treasurer. John Sigurino, serving as Northwest campus representative. Leslie Lopez, which is also the Valle Verde campus representative. Delia Medina, which is the Mission Del Paso campus representative. And David Zamora, which is the Trans Mountain senator. As you can tell, we do have a lot of coverage when it comes to this year's student body, so we're very, very, very excited and ready and prepared to serve and represent the student body as well as the college. We had our retreat on the last weekend of June where we discussed and brought together our ideas, thoughts, and plans towards our term for the academic school year and beyond. We came to a consensus that we need to create a more awareness for our students involving programs, resources, and activities around the college. We are going to begin working on a Did You Know initiative where we help spread the word out involving said programs as well as increasing school pride. We would also like to work with staff to pitch in ideas involving a student perspective as well as propose ideas that will further spread awareness from these programs that benefit the students. This involves every degree and certification that the college provides. I'd like to quote one of my favorite movies from Robin Williams in the Dead Poets Society. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are the noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, music, romance, literature, and love are what we stay alive for. Creating opportunities for students not only enhances the quality of education that the college provides, but also creates culture and fosters a community that we all yearn for. Since the 2020 elections are right around the corner, us, the Student Government Association, are also going to do a Get Out the Vote initiative once again. I know last year we had approximately 200 registered students to vote, and we do have ambitious plans, and our goal is to get all of our members deputized and register 1,000 students to vote. We are also going to spread awareness about the upcoming 2020 census as well, as teaming up with the census in order to get everyone in our community counted for. We will also work on outreach involving the current issues happening in our border by spreading awareness within our student body and our community. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, said on Monday, July 8th, in most of these cases, migrants and refugees have embarked on perilous journeys with their children in search of protection and dignity and away from violence and hunger. When they finally believe they have a right to safety, they may find themselves separated from their loved ones and locked in undignified conditions. This should never happen anywhere, end quote. 102 years ago, if you guys want to know, there was actually El Paso was also in the spotlight involving the 1917 Bath riots, where new policies involving immigration and naturalization required Mexicans crossing the border take delousing baths and vaccinations. These baths involved kerosene baths, insecticides, and DDT. This continued for 40 years, and it's up to us to voice our concerns involving the situation that's happening in our border and our city. Lastly, we are continuing where the previous Student Government Association left off, involving both policies 4.10.07.10, student travel, as well as 2.10.12.10, totally pronounced that properly, college smoking regulations. The student travel policy, I know it's a matter of getting the right insurance for the students, which is awesome, which I thank you all so much for helping us out from there. And also the smoking regulations was left off with the board having a vote on changing it per Judge Haggerty's words in the previous meeting. I do hope you make the right decision, as we are not only needing to get to the times, but we need to become the example on becoming leaders, and that changes in habit to promote a better quality of life within our students in the college. The college has been making a push for enrollment towards high schools, and especially within the early college high school on-site program. According to the spring 2019's enrollment numbers, we serve 4,797 students in the early college high school program. And according to the U.S. Department of Health's 2006 report, The Health Consequences of Involuntary Exposure to Tobacco Smoke, the U.S. Surgeon General reported that there is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke, and that on average, minors are exposed to more secondhand smoke than adults. We had a total enrollment of the spring that contained 26,424 students, and that means we have an approximate of 18% of our student body that are actually part of the early college high school program. The Texas legislature also increased the age limit of buying and using tobacco products to age 21, which it comes to effect at the end of August, I believe early September. And it leaves us, the leaders and mentors of the college, to set the example and rip the Band-Aid off, like you've heard us say previously. And I'd like to quote President Serrata when it comes to our meetings, when we have them on constituency meetings and stuff, is we always hear him say, do we really want to be the last ones in this issue? We are looking forward to hearing from the board's decision. And finally, I would like to thank everyone here in attendance for your efforts towards making the college the best place to start and finish. I had to use the slogan, sorry. Myself personally would never imagine being in the position I am without the motivation and the efforts given to me by the faculty, staff, and friends that I've met here along the way. I would like to close my first report with a quote from Nelson Mandela: "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Thank you.
Have a great year. Looks like you're off to a good start.
Beautiful day. Esteemed Board of Trustees, Dr. Serrata, and attendees. The Professional Staff Association has been busy working on several projects during the summer. First, PSA held elections to select a new VP and secretary for the next 2-year term. Grace Arives and Rosa Lopez were selected. A thank you to Dr. Jenny Giron's area for helping with the voting process. Second, we'd like to thank Dr. Andrew Peña and Albert Yanes for allowing us to share the draft classified staff and professional support performance evaluation form with our constituency group. And last but not least, on behalf of PSA Student Scholarship Committee, we would like to thank all who attended and supported our very first fundraising karaoke event on July the 17th. This fundraiser was for student scholarships, and it was a great success due to your encouragement and participation. The event was so much fun and enjoyed by those who attended, and we received excellent feedback during and after the event. Professional Staff Association supports student scholarships that assist and help students while pursuing a higher education. We hope that you will continue to support this effort. A special thanks to our media department for a job well done. And sincere thanks to our judges that graciously donated their time to judge our contestants, to our performers who did an excellent job. Kudos to our MC who hosted and facilitated the program. His unique talent and energy brought it to a brand new level. Finally, thanks to all who volunteered their time to make this event memorable, successful, and fun. We appreciate everyone's continued support of PSA efforts. Thank you and have a wonderful week.
Thank you. No faculty?
Item 1.8, communications, none. Item 1.9, Board of Trustee business, none. Item 1.10, board reports. 1.10.1, Treasurer's Report of June 30th, 2019, no action is necessary. 1.10.2, President's Report. Item 1.10.2.1 and item 1.10.2.2, Dr. Sarata will update the Board of Trustees and audience on recent events that have transpired at the college. As part of the President's Report, Dr. Sarata will provide an update on the 86th legislative session.
Chair Haggerty, members of the board, always a pleasure to update you on some of the items that are occurring at the college under the leadership of all the faculty, staff, and administration. I really want to focus the bulk of my time on a brief legislative update. Obviously, we know that classes are beginning next month before the next board meeting. We look forward to that. Faculty Development Week will be taking place the week prior to that. But I do want to focus on the 86th legislature. I have a formal presentation that I will provide to the board for your retreat, but I did want to provide a narrative as Ms. Sanchez had requested. You know, there were over 10,800 pieces of legislation that were filed during the 140-day regular session. Over 4,500 bills were passed into law. Several dozen of those bills relate to public higher education, to political subdivisions, and to community colleges specifically. I'm going to touch on a few brief ones that were significant legislation that were passed into law, which related specifically to community colleges. House Bill 1, which is really the only the only constitutional mandate that the legislature has, which is passing a balanced budget. House Bill 1, which was appropriations, it provided an increase to formula funding. This was a public school session. Dr. Graham, I know that you specifically on this board would know that. They allocated over $11.5 billion to public schools, both in direct appropriations as well as in tax relief. The state upped their percentage of funding for public schools from about 38% to about 45%. So ADA funding for students went up over $1,000. For community colleges, they provided a formula funding increase, 50 community colleges serving about 750,000 students, an increase of about $68 million, or about a 3.8% increase over the previous biennium. This is good news. Being in the black is much better than being cut. It is good news for the institution. The portion for El Paso Community College specifically, as you know, as we've had budget presentations that Vice President Shaughnessy and her team have led for the last 2 months, you're looking at about $622,000 of additional revenue for the college over the biennium, about $311,000 per year. Senate Bill 2, this bill is really entitled the Texas Taxpayer Transparency Act of 2019. This is where, based on the additional funding that was provided in tax reform or tax relief as opposed to tax cuts, this reduced to 3.5% counties, the rollback rate to 3.5%. Anything over 3.5% automatically triggers an election. 3.5% for counties, 3.5% for cities, 2.5% for school districts, 2.5% for school districts. Hospital districts and community colleges were exempt. So we retained our 8% rollback rate. For the audience's purposes, we have a hard cap. As we've gone through budget deliberations, as the board has provided input and gone through budget deliberations, our hard cap is 15 cents. Our current tax rate is estimated to be 14.1 cents. So we couldn't do an 8% because it would put us over the cap. But we retain that ability that if we needed to, we could do up to 8% without a rollback election. Senate Bill 25 is the most significant legislation that has been passed with regards to the transfer process in the state of Texas. This was very much led by its author, Senator West. Last week in Austin, I had the good fortune of interviewing Senator West for my colleagues at the Texas Association of Community Colleges. He has continuously brought up transfer and his constituents in the Dallas area, speaking to parents calling his office and saying, my son, my daughter lost transfer credits in the transfer process. They took this course at Dallas Community College. They're transferring to the University of Texas at Dallas or University of North Texas at Dallas, and this credit doesn't transfer. And so the estimation is that it was costing families and the state of Texas combined $114 million annually. So over the course of a decade, well over $1 billion. Senate Bill 25 is the first, and it's a bold step to ensure that we facilitate the transfer process, academic progress, and timely graduation of students in public higher ed. There is a recommended course sequence. Higher education institutions will have to develop at least one of those course sequences for each major offered. We will have to report courses that do not transfer to the state of Texas, both community colleges as well as universities. So it is a bold step in facilitating the transfer process so that students and families as well as the state of Texas do not lose resources, financial resources. The rules are currently being, there is a committee, and we have an opportunity to recommend committee members to the coordinating board to develop those rules. Obviously, the coordinating board is in the process of selecting a new commissioner. So once that commissioner is on board, those rules in the fall will begin to be developed. They go out for public comment, so we anticipate that in the spring of 2020, we will have those rules in place where all of us can adhere to those. Senate Bill 1324 was with regards to dual credit. This was a priority for TAC. This was a priority for the Texas Student Success Council. And what this does, you heard the student government president reference early college high schools as well as dual credit, is we ensure that students in high school declare a major or a path by the 15th hour. Upon the semester following the accumulation of 15 credit hours, they will have to declare a pathway, a degree plan. So again, this narrows the focus for students not having to take excess credit hours to ensure that those hours will transfer. Senate Bill 502 relates to requiring certain institutions of higher ed to issue reports. Again, this is on transferability of credit. So there were several bills that were passed that focused on, and it also complements Senate Bill 25. House Bill 3808 relates to the measures to facilitate timely graduation, again requiring that students go from 30 semester credit hours to 15 and filing a degree plan in a timely fashion. Senate Bill 18 is very much focused on free speech. This is something that has gained national attention at some institutions, some very selective institutions, to be quite honest. UC Berkeley came into the news, my alma mater in College Station came into the news. This really is not an issue for community colleges. However, we will need to ensure that we focus on this and provide a free speech zone. And I'll just give you, the concern was the free speech zone cannot be out in the outskirts of a parking lot. It needs to be out, and Ms. Jones is nodding because she knows this area very well. It needs to be in an area in the heart of the campus. They were kind enough to ensure that there are individuals that are our students and not just any individual who from the public determines they want to come onto our Valle Verde campus and speak freely. It has to be somebody that is affiliated with the institution. But yes,
Is that
please.
an all or nothing? In other words, if the college chose not to allow anybody,
The college cannot.
we cannot do that,
No, we
so
can't.
we have to, okay.
All speech, correct. Yeah, when we're not allowed to stifle speech. Yeah. There's some exceptions in the law with regards to hate speech and things of that nature that you would know actually better than I would, Ms. Sanchez, but it adheres to all speech. This was not an issue for community colleges, but there are some universities that have come under the microscope, and these are one of those one for all and all for none bills that goes forward. There was a lot of campus safety items that came up as well. And so Senate Bill 212 is with regards to the reporting of sexually related incidents against a student or an employee to the institutions and our Title IX coordinator. So Dr. Gonzalez is our Title IX coordinator on the student side, and then Dr. Peña is our Title IX coordinator currently until he fills a vacancy, but he will handle that duty for our faculty and staff. Lots of bills that were passed specific to campus safety. House Bill 449 also requires us, if we suspend or expel a student for any reason, that we document it on the student's transcript. I'm an old registrar. I remember when transcripts only had grades on them. They have lots of information now. And so I with our student government president, our students need to know. And obviously, we will be providing this in orientations, but we are now required by law, if one of our students does something inappropriately and we have to expel them, that we notate it on your transcript forever. So this is very much in a campus safety mode. Another is House Bill 1735, also relating to campus safety. This requires public and private post-secondary educational institutions to adopt a policy. So we will be working on this with the board. Dr. Graham, to your credit, we will also be reaching out to TASB. We will ask TASB to come and provide a presentation. Texas Association of School Boards that has a policy mechanism for community colleges. So we were going to ask them to come and present to the board. And also to work with cabinet so that we are all on the same page of how we begin to implement these. So what TASB does specifically is any state statutes that are changed, they ensure that our policies are up to speed with those. We do not, let me let the constituency groups know, local policies remain at the local level, and we will continue to go out to our constituency groups, know a firm belief in shared governance so that our constituency groups continue to provide input. The ones that are the law, we don't have a choice. Those we will change as the law mandates, and obviously legal counsel will be involved with us on these as well. So 1735, looking at adopting that policy on sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. Some of the language in our current policies do not have terms specific as dating violence and or stalking. So we will need to ensure that we update those, which we will move forward with. Provisions of the bill require peace officers employed by post-secondary educational institution to complete training on trauma-informed investigations into allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking, and that each institution appoint a Title IX coordinator. We've done those. So obviously Chief Ramirez and his officers will go through the training. We will work with external experts to provide that training. And finally, these are just a handful of the many bills that were passed that relate to us. But House Bill 476 requires institutions that have adopted policies on epinephrine, auto-injectors, to include that policy in our handbook, our students' handbook, or a similar publication that we publish so that on our website. So I know that this is, again, a campus safety item. Those were just a handful of the big bills that pertain to us. We will continue to monitor where the coordinating board is on developing the rules on some of these, specifically Senate Bill 25, which will be a large, large bill. On the horizon, I'd share that some of the items that we're looking at as interim hearing studies and that we're recommending at the Texas Association of Community Colleges is ensuring that community colleges have the capacity to meet the goals of 60 by 30 Texas. That is focusing on service areas as well as taxing districts as part of that study. We're looking at Senate Bill 25 and how we can tweak and make that bill even better. Those are just a handful, Chair and members of the board. I'm happy to answer questions on any of these. I do, as I said, have a more formal PowerPoint presentation that we will provide to the board as well. Question? Sure, Ms.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes, on SB 2, so it's pretty well known, it was capped for counties, cities, 3.5 hospital districts, and the colleges were exempt from that. Do you know if there's talk of them revisiting that? Are we safe,
Yeah.
or is that coming back and we still need to consider that for not only this budget, but
Yeah.
maybe next budget
It's a
as well?
really good question, Ms. Sanchez. Our belief at the Texas Association of Community Colleges is that this is done. That's our belief. There may be a legislator that comes forward. I will say that two things. We're very fortunate that Dr. Millicent Valek is the president of Brazosport College. That is part of the district for Speaker Bonin. Speaker Bonin was a huge ally for us with regards to the exemption on the 8% rollback. We believe that it is a done deal. That's just our belief. A legislator could decide we need to get the colleges, the community colleges, as well as hospital districts under that too.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions from the board? Chair Haggerty, that completes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Sarata.
Item 1.11, consent docket. This includes items 3.2 and 8.1.
I'm sorry, which item?
Item 3.2 and 8.1 are included on the consent
Consent.
docket.
Yes, move to approve?
Second.
Any questions?
Any discussion? Call the question.
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 2.0, administration, none. Item 3.1, discussion and action to approve full-time staff and faculty recruited in positions funded by the institutional budget.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question.
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 3.3, discussion and action to approve the salary increases for the college employees for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
Move to approve a salary of 3.5 increase for the college employees for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second?
Any discussion?
Did you say 3.5%?
Yes, I did.
No discussion? I'll call the question.
Just, I guess in terms of the college, or if somebody can, what would that impact look like for the budget? Have we run those numbers yet, or do you have any concerns with that we just need to be mindful of?
Well, in light of the presentation that we made to the Board of Trustees at this afternoon's budget workshop, we had recommended 3%. 1% is equivalent to about $932,000, so half of that would be $466,000. So that would be the impact, and that would basically have to be funded through the Bynum Reserve. I had explained to the board on the different funding scenarios for salary increases.
Go ahead.
I have a question. In the board presentation, was it not true that the president and the board recommended a 3% increase?
Yes, sir, that's true.
I wonder where the 3.5% came from. I haven't seen those numbers.
I think, Mr. Uxer, that the president and his staff recommended a increase of 3%. There's nothing about the board doing anything until right now. So every board member has a right to make a motion, and we're discussing it. And with the presentation we had earlier today, you're just going to reduce the net biennial reserve by $465,000. This is not going to require anything we do at this cost. It's not going to require a tax increase, correct?
No, sir.
Or a tuition increase.
Or a tuition increase. That is correct.
Sure.
Just on the biennium reserve, because we did talk about that during the budget session earlier. What are some considerations of, why is that important, in other words, for the public, if you can explain in terms of if we're lowering it, if we're reserving it, because the staff's recommendation was at 3%, and there was a lot of discussion on that reserve. Can you go into that and explain why that's something that we need to take into consideration?
Sure. So in light of, we currently have a biennial reserve about $5.1 million that is included in this year's budget. In the past years, couple of years, we have established a biennial reserve to respond to any kind of changes in state appropriations or decrease in enrollment or things like that. And so here, when we established the biennial reserve that you all approved in the budget last August, the $5.1 million was to actually anticipate any kind of additional request for additional needs for the new facilities, or also to cover any salary enhancement recommendation. So certainly the $5.1 million is sufficient to handle that, and even with this additional 0.5% that Ms. Graham is putting in her motion, the biennium reserve will still be about at $1.8 million.
Is it, in your opinion, is that healthy? Is that sustainable for the college? Are there any risks that we can foresee that we really need to be mindful of?
Well, the 3% actually was giving us about $2.3 million in the biennium reserve. So you have a small decrease, close to $500,000. So I don't anticipate that would be really, that would create any major issues for our budget.
And if you remember at the last meeting, I asked to see the 4% because my intent was that we would suggest a 4%, but in light of the numbers, and speaking to the president and to yourself, I'm comfortable with 3.5. But I had requested the 4%, and I appreciate that you put the numbers together.
We did provide that information.
It's a lot of work.
Any other questions? Call the question?
Mr. Uxer.
In view of the fact that administration and the staff put to work and made the recommendation for 3%, I'm not opposed to helping the staff or anything else, but I vote no.
Ms. Sanchez.
Aye, and it's for the 3.5, just to be clear.
3.5, that's correct.
Aye.
Mrs. Robles.
Aye.
Dr. Graham.
Aye.
Ms. Nájera.
Aye.
Ms. Pena.
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty.
Aye.
Chair Haggerty and members of the board, on behalf of the faculty and staff as well as administration, we certainly thank you very much for approving a salary enhancement for all faculty and staff. We're certainly very grateful for all the time that the board puts in, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the board on behalf of our faculty and staff.
Well, by the same token, we thank the staff and everyone for all the hard work that they do, and keep recruiting students, because then the numbers keep going up, and there'll be another year that we are going to have to be working on with this same budget. So remember, everybody's a recruiter.
Duly noted.
Item 3.4, information items, resignations and retirements. No action is required. Item 4.1, discussion and action on the approval of a contract award with Touchnet Information Systems Incorporated to provide a payment application and cashiering software system in an amount not to exceed $884,054 over a 5-year period.
Move to approve, but I do have a question.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I just wondered, because it's gonna be a 5-year period, so would this be something that if it's not working out, we can walk away from it or change it before the 5-year period? Or are we locked into the 5-year period? I think Ms. Shaughnessy?
So I believe the contract does include a clause that would allow us to get out of the contract should we have issues, I mean, serious issues with the system. We've been with Touchnet since 2009, I believe.
Okay.
Since 2009, and we certainly have been very pleased with the performance of the software that has allowed for payment gateway for our students and customers.
I have a question. So I guess on that point, because I had the same question, I was not sure, at least provided in the backup, if it was for an additional locked-in 5-year period, or are we talking about the option to renew every year for 5 years? In other words, we revisit this for the next 5 years every year. Is it just the locked-in for the 5?
5-year.
Okay.
It's a 5-year contract.
Okay. And then I have another question, Judge, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay. In the backup, it also references a possible integration with the banner and the cardinal tracking system, and there was an additional cost of, I guess, $1,250.
Or 1%?
Yeah, but I wasn't clear whether or not the college was also recommending that we include that as part of this contract, or is that something that we're revisiting later on, or is that even a consideration to do an integration at this point?
This is a contingency, just we are able to do the integration because we are considering the integration at this point. And maybe Dr. Ridon or Mr. Flores can add to this.
I guess the question I had is similar to Ms. Sanchez. Is this going to increase the price beyond the 884, or is it already factored in?
The 884 already includes and makes an allowance for the additional cardinal tracking integration. And Ms. Shaughnessy is correct. This would be on the contingency if we chose to avail ourselves of the service to integrate banner with cardinal tracking, that would be the cost.
Why not make that recommendation now? Is there are we still looking at it or reviewing it? Is that why we want to wait until
That is
time?
correct. That's still being reviewed,
Okay.
but the cost does include that
The
allowance if we
addition.
chose to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 4.2, discussion and action on the approval of contracts with Office Depot Business Services Division, Pencil Cup Office Products Incorporated, and El Paso Office Products for the district-wide purchase of office products in an amount not to exceed $700,000.
Move to approve 4.2 and 4.3.
Second.
If I can just have a comment on 4.3?
Can we read it first?
Yes.
Item 4.3, discussion, oops, it's on the next page. Discussion and action on the, wait a minute. Is it that one? Okay. Discussion and action on the renewal of a 2-year software maintenance support contract with Ellucian Higher Education for the Banner Enterprise Resource Planning ERP system in the amount of $514,742.
I know that this issue has come up before in a couple of other contracts or agenda items, at least as it pertains to the sole source. But I think, at least for me, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think it would be helpful to include that this item is sole source in the agenda language. It is in the backup, but if we can identify this or any other up front, I think it gives public notice on it. Again, because of the sensitivity of these sole source issues, Dr. Graham, you've raised really great issues before in the past, and so I definitely think it bears putting it in the actual agenda language. So it's just a suggestion.
We can do that, Ms. Sanchez. What we'll do is we can put in parentheses in bold that it is a sole source item.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I second Dr. Graham's motion for approval.
Actually, I think we had a second.
Oh, you already second? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Call the question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles,
Aye.
Dr. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. Nájera,
Aye.
Ms. Pena,
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty.
Aye.
Item 4.4, discussion and action on the approval of a 3-year contract with Reliable Government Solutions Incorporated for a mass notification system in the amount of $248,818.
Move to approve?
Second, and I have a question.
Okay, discussion, go ahead and answer your question.
On this, has this already been tested? And if so, what notifications have been sent out that we have seen that it works?
Part of our Tejano alert. So when their building needs to be closed down, or if there's an issue with electricity, classes need to be canceled, Tejano alerts are sent out with this system.
Right, and have we used it already? Does it work?
Yes,
Do we know
yes.
it works?
Yes, we have
Because
used
I
it.
got word that supposedly there was some incident going on at Trans Mountain campus, and the employees were hearing from it at Walmart instead of, that's why I'm asking, when do we use it?
So the last time that we used it, there was an issue at Mission Del Paso, and the campus needed to be closed, or the one entryway was closed off, because there was usually 2 entryways, and there was going to be one that was going to be closed off. I don't know if you remember another.
Yes,
Dr. Hidon.
Dr. Graham, to answer your question, this is a system we've used for the past 3 years. And again, we send out alerts for all kinds of different emergencies, whether they're power outages. The incident that Dr. Gonzalez is referring to, last week we had some rain at Mission del Paso and there was some flooding. So the road was getting very flooded, so we released the students. And again, notifications go out via text, via email, and via phone calls. So the particular incident you're talking about at Trans Mountain, I'm not aware of that, but again, we have different modes of informing our students, faculty, and staff.
Do
Dr.
students
Grant?
get reminded, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Do
please.
students get reminded annually to update their information, update their cell phone numbers, update all that information?
That is correct. At the beginning of the semester, for about 3 or 4 weeks, every time they log into EPCC, they get a pop-up message. So they continue to get that pop-up message until they update their information.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Graham and members of the board, part of what you're hearing and part of what we continue to hone and to increase our effectiveness and efficiency with mass communication systems is our own internal procedures. So what you may have heard, we may have had an incident or suspicion of an incident that may not have gone through the correct protocol. So it's more us than the system. And we continue to refine that. Dr. Hidon has led that for us along with Chief Ramirez and Dr. Gonzalez's area to continue to do that. We continue to bring in experts. I know that Dr. Hidon, Dr. Mitchell, along with Dr. Gonzalez are looking at bringing in a consultant to look at, our behavior intervention team, to look at a critical response team, and really the use of our mass communication system. A caveat for the board as well as for our team, there are certain things that I would like to see us use. Obviously, emergencies are first and foremost, but simple prompts, very limited prompts on letting students know things they need to do. It's time to register. It's time to pay. Things of that nature, very limited in scope. And Chief and I have discussed this, and Dr. Gonzalez, very limited in scope. This is a mass communication emergency response system, so we will use it primarily, I'd say 90+% of the time, simply for that, letting people know. But we also have an opportunity, since we can reach so many of our students, I don't know any students who don't have cell phones these days, that we can reach them and also encourage them and prompt them and nudge them to do the right thing. There's been a significant amount of research. Dr. Ben Castleman from the University of Virginia in particular, who has shown things of, for instance, summer melt that can be impacted, where students are going to come to college in the summer and then all of a sudden decide, I think I want some more time off. That text messaging really can increase the number of students that continue on. And so, as you said earlier, everyone's a recruiter, including our mass communication system.
And you know what, just to mention something about the incident with Mission Early, I did get a message, and I do get, as well as my son, and I can tell you that it does help, so, kudos to that.
And, we have consultants available that will not charge the college. They are under different agencies. I know that our district brings them in, and I'll be happy to get the names if you don't have them. But they do a very good job at providing that training. Thank you.
Any other questions? Call a question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles? Aye. Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 4.5, discussion and action on the approval of a contract renewal with Innovative Interfaces Incorporated for the annual maintenance of the Sierra Library Services platform, which integrates all college library services in the amount of $70,886.
Move to approve 4.5, 5.1,
I have a
And-
question on 4.5.
and 5.2, because they're very similar. Yes.
Second.
Okay, could we read those other two items? Pam?
Yes, sir. Item 5.1, discussion and action on the approval to award a contract to El Paso Disposal LP for district-wide trash removal services in an amount not to exceed $247,360 over a 5-year period. And item 5.2, discussion and action on the approval to award a contract to Fisher Scientific Company LLC to provide laboratory equipment for the new science laboratories located at the Trans Mountain campus as part of the Art, Science, and Writing Center remodel project in an amount not to exceed $164,797.
Any questions on any of those items?
I have question on 5.1, and I think Ms. Sanchez has one too.
For item number 4.5, I noticed in the backup that there is indication that the future annual cost would be subject to an increase of 6% per annum. So was there an increase of that 6% for purposes of this contract? And is that built into the current contract then that we're being asked to approve?
Ms. Sanchez, very good question. Our software maintenance and support is continuously increasing every year by 3 to 6 to 10%.
Okay.
So we do include that in our cost, and it does increase every year.
So I noticed that for this item, for example, this is a sole source item, and so if it's increasing every year, is that part of the, I guess, evaluation in terms of are we really looking maybe at other sources that can provide this service because of these built-in maintenance costs?
And again, a very good question and very timely, because Dr. Mitchell and the librarians are looking at other products, other management systems for the library in consultation with IT.
Is that 6.10% as well? Is that typical for these type of contracts in terms of those maintenance fees?
It is, and for software upgrades.
For the software upgrades, okay. Thank you, Dr. Giron.
You're welcome.
And I have the question on 5.1. Is the renewal going to be at the same price or no? That's the El Paso disposal.
The amount of the contract is over a 5-year period at $247,000. And I don't know if
So
Mr.
it's fixed per year?
I don't know. Mr. Lobato, would you like to address that? I'll have Mr. Lobato address that question.
It's fixed? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Call the question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles? Aye. Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 5.3, discussion and action on the approval to award a contract to Office Depot to provide office and classroom furniture for the new Science Writing Center and Art Department located at the Trans Mountain campus as part of the Art, Science, and Writing Center remodel project in an amount not to exceed $59,611.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question.
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 6.1, discussion and action on the approval of contract renewals of GOBI Library Solutions from EBSCO and Barnes & Noble to purchase library materials for the EPCC libraries in an amount not to exceed $217,125.
Move to approve 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3.
Second?
Can we read 6.2 and 6.3, please?
Sir. Item 6.2, discussion and action on the approval of contract renewals for online databases and electronic books with EBSCO and ProQuest Information and Learning for the EPCC libraries in an amount not to exceed $102,000. And item 6.3, discussion and action on the approval of a 3-year contract with West Thompson Reuters for print titles for the paralegal program in the amount of $77,076.
Any discussion? Call the question.
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 6.4, discussion and action on the approval to purchase from Lincoln Electric Company an advanced Vertex virtual reality arc welding training simulator in an amount not to exceed $57,495.
Move to approve 6.4 and 6.5.
I have a question on 6.5.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Item 6.5, discussion and action on the acceptance of a grant award from the Texas Workforce Commission in the amount of $185,521.
For this item, is there a grant match that's required for the college?
No, ma'am.
No, okay. And then also, I'm not familiar with this program, and I noticed in the back it mentions employees, and so then there's a listing of Manufacturing Consortium, Caesar Scott Inc. Are these college employees, or what is this grant for?
No, ma'am. So this is part of our Skills Development Fund effort, and typically we would deal with one company, but in certain instances, there's not enough employees in an individual company, so this is one of the first of the kind. We're doing a consortium, putting 3 companies together, and these are employees of the companies that are either new employees or upgrading existing skills for current employees.
Does the college enter into an agreements with each of these? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
They're separate agreements, but we're just approving the grant for today?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, sir. On these grants, are we looking at trying to purchase equipment with these funds at all? Because it looks like it's all personnel or copies but really the college has a need for equipment.
So we've had those discussions in a variety of contexts. I would ask Dr. Carmen Aguilar-Gerner to answer if we're doing that for this specific project. I think the answer is no, but I would just like to confirm with her. But we have been looking at opportunities where we would be purchasing equipment to do the training on our own. So these are typically taught at the company sites.
Good evening, members of the Board of EPCC. Typically, yes, this is a skills development fund, and it's only for employees or incumbent employees that we provide training. We are very proud of this grant because it's our first manufacturing consortium grant, and it's for the 3 small companies. Typically, the equipment is not included. We have to look at other sources for equipment, so we just provide the training at the site.
And who are going to be the instructors, or who's responsible for the instruction? for
We
this
are.
type?
We implement the grant once it is awarded, and we typically go to our EPCC instructors first, and then if we
But
do...
doesn't it require people from the industry? I mean, manufacturing and that, shouldn't it be people from the industry? I'm just
Yes,
trying
we
to
we
learn.
typically go through our Advanced Technology Center through Dr. Valerio or some of the other directors, such as the corporate training, customer service and corporate training under Luz Tabado. But we also have third-party vendors. Our highly technical courses are provided through third-party vendors, and we sometimes will reach out to UTEP and TMEC and some other organizations, yes.
I guess I'm just looking to see that we're tightening up our relationship with the industry and not just use professors, but rather people from the industry. Because remember, I'm after the apprenticeships, the internships, and trying to access grants and funds that can provide some of the equipment that the college, otherwise we end up using the money ourselves.
Let me help you. The instructors that we get it, they are from the industry. Usually I'm responsible to find all the instructors for these grants, for the manufacturing grants. In fact, right now we are in the process to teaching an ultrasonic class. The person that I'm looking is a person that actually is a trainer that works in California, and I'm planning to bring him here to teach a class for us. All the people do the customized training is people that work in the industry. Sometimes it's people work from different industries, or San Antonio, or Las Cruces. I have been very lucky to bring people because my industry background, to bring these kind of people. Yes, people has experience in industry, 100%.
And if I may clarify, sometimes we will hire the own employees from the company to teach these courses. So if they have experts in the area, we also can hire them to teach the courses to their own employees.
So why would they come to the college if they have their own teachers, instructors in their companies?
We hire them as a third-party kind of instructors because they have the expertise, and that's part of the grant. That the beauty of this grant is that we can do that. But like I said, first we reach out to our instructors or the experts, and then we reach out to third-party vendors or UTEP or other manufacturing organizations that have instructors that we can hire.
Dr. Graham, briefly, it's a great point. The Skills Development Fund and the way the Skills Development Fund is that the community college owns the curriculum. And so even though the faculty member may be an expert within that particular area, the curriculum is developed in conjunction with the college, and we own the curriculum. Okay. So that's how it's a third party that we bring through us. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Vice President Smith, Dr. Farias, Dr. Gerner, Dr. Valerio. We've been working harder. You have whispered in our ears on a number of occasions that we need to ensure that El Paso Community College is receiving skills development funds, and so we continue to work on a strategy, partnering with Joyce Wilson and her team, partnering with UTEP, partnering with business and industry to continue to bring more skills development fund grants to El Paso.
Okay, because I think if I remember correctly, this is only about the second time that we see one of these grants coming up before us, right?
In the recent past, yes.
Yes. This is our third SDF grant, and we have one in the works that's due hopefully this week, and we're reaching out to a lot of companies here.
At some point, can the board get a report of how many internships and apprenticeships we have already established? Because I know you've been already here, what, 2 years?
Yes, it'll be 2 years in December, yes.
Yeah, to see if it's cost effective, and see how many people how many internships we have.
Yes, in fact, we just were awarded an AACC apprenticeship grant that will be implemented pretty soon. So that was for $140,000.
But I guess I'm looking more, again, thinking about it from the Texas workforce lens. I'm looking to see what are we doing here in our community to provide these opportunities for our students, opportunities for them, because when I speak to different businessmen, we don't have those going on. Why are we tapping on to those businesses, those individuals? And if not, why not? That's another recruitment tool that if we provide those opportunities, the students will jump on the internships and apprenticeships.
For the apprenticeships, yes.
So if we could have a report that shows what we've done. Thank you.
I guess that's a great suggestion, Dr. Graham. I would ask, not just provided a report, but maybe a presentation during a board meeting, so that could be made public as well. I think that would be definitely beneficial. People from the industry can be made aware as well, and so that would just be my only suggestion to add, is if we could add that to a next board meeting.
Sure. we
Or
would
whenever
be
you all
happy.
have it ready.
Okay.
I know it takes some time.
Thank you.
Next board meeting sounds good.
Any other question? Call a question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 6.6, discussion and action on the approval of the Socorro ISD Early College High Schools Interlocal Agreement.
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Michael?
Yeah.
All right. For is this for the new early, whose is this? Is this for the new early colleges that are
Yes,
coming on
yes,
board?
ma'am, it is.
Is it an amendment to a current interlocal that we have, or is it a brand new?
It's modeled after some of the interlocal agreements we have with
Okay.
Socorro.
So this
but
is
it's a new agreement.
It's a new agreement with the school district. Okay, thank you.
Although I'm going to abstain on this, I do have a question. And maybe somehow we can revisit the language of the MOU. I don't know, I need your guidance on that, but some of the issues that come up, is that when a student gets in trouble and ends up having to go to the alternative school for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 9 weeks, and if they are participating in any of our dual credit courses, which of course the early college high school, has a big share of, then there's a disconnect because they lose that credit. Can we revisit that next time that there's an opportunity to see? I guess I hate that the kids are penalized or disciplined, not just physically and emotionally, but we're also punishing them academically. Because if they're taking a couple of classes, and these are not perfect kids, they're learning, they are on their way to becoming great. But they make a mistake, and then I think we could look and see if there's maybe, let's say that if the instructor is willing to continue providing that relationship with the student, so that they don't end up losing that credit. I'm not talking about the ones that are going to be gone for a long time. I'm talking about the ones that are only going for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or they sit there and cry because they lost their credit because they made a mistake. And I know that's part of the consequences. Probably the judge will agree that, no, we should throw the book at them.
Not the book, but I would assume the students are told that if they make a mistake, that there are consequences.
They don't. That's another
Well,
thing.
There are
We don't
consequences,
tell
and
them.
Then maybe we
the
should
short
put
answer
that
is
in.
we can certainly explore language like that. The challenge is that these are college-level courses, and if we start to treat early college, high school, or dual credit students differently than we would treat our native students, then we start to answer questions with SACs, and they start to ask us questions about that as well.
So let's say, for example, a student at EPCC that's not associated with the early college. And I'm sorry about the discussion, but I think we're learning from Ms. Sanchez that these discussions have to take place here, not in executives. If that student, for example, gets in trouble for driving drunk or whatever and goes to jail for a week or so, do we kick him out of the courses?
We would look to the syllabi for the instructors and see what the class guidance is regarding those things.
So does that mean that there's different guidance from different instructors? And
Very
that's
well
what I'm
could be.
saying, you know, because we're not, let's be fair, we're not kicking out the ones that get arrested for drunk driving. You know, we're gonna kick out the kid because he answered back to the teacher and she's headed with him and she sends him to the alternative. Now we kick them out of college too for that particular class. So that's all I'm asking, that we revisit the scenarios, because I deal with some of those parents and some of those students. And, you know, God forbid that they find out I'm on the board, then they really, you know, want something done. And
I think what you ought to do is change the MO and say, if you take this class, if you screw up, there are consequences for screwing up.
And I'm also compelled to say that Dean Badillo and her office does an outstanding job maintaining these MOUs. They're fully vetted not only by our legal team, but by the ISD legal teams as well. But we can certainly look and see if there's any way we can build some kind of language like that in. It's a complicated issue,
It's
and
very
certainly one that tugs at the heartstrings when the
especially when you
students
have
happen.
somebody from the alternative school, blah, 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 you know, advocating for these kids, and I think Dean Vadillo knows very well who I'm talking about, and that's where I get this.
She gets the same kinds of questions and thoughts as well.
Just have him talk to Mr. Smith.
And I
No, because he can't change the.
And I guess the question is it the interlocal agreement that would be the best place to address that, or is it some other discussion? I mean, does that have to, I mean, I don't know, I don't know
That's a
much.
great thought,
Right?
and we would have to have those conversations not only internally, but in conjunction with our legal team as well. I don't know if that's the best place to put it or not.
Because when I asked at the district, they said, no, this is a college that, you know, has this in place. Okay, so, yeah, if we could just maybe open the dialogue and see, there might be some scenarios.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call a question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Abstain?
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Item 7.1, discussion and action to approve the continuing education tuition rates for new courses.
Move to approve 7.1 and 7.2.
Second.
Can you reach that?
Item 7.2, discussion and action on the approval of continuing education tuition rates for revised courses.
Any discussion? Call a question?
Mr. Uxer?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mrs. Robles?
Aye.
Dr. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. Nahara?
Aye.
Ms. Pena?
Aye.
Mr. Haggerty?
Aye.
Would you
Okay,
like to go
Pamela,
into
we're going to
executive
executive.
session?
Go ahead.
The Board of Trustees may conduct an executive or closed session pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code for one or more of the following reasons: consultation with its attorney to seek or receive legal advice or consultation regarding pending or contemplated litigation or for any purpose authorized by law, discussion about the value or transfer of real property, discussion about a prospective gift or donation, consideration of specific personnel matters, discussion about security personnel or devices, or discussion of certain economic development matters. The board may also announce that it will go into an executive session on any item listed on this agenda if the subject matter is permitted for a closed session by provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Any vote regarding these items shall be taken in open session. Discussion regarding possible acquisition of real property located in the lower valley of El Paso County, Texas, pursuant to Section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code, and discussion regarding EEOC charge of Daniel Rogelio Vasquez, EEOC charge number 453-2019-00565, pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code.
The next board meeting will be the 28th. It's Wednesday. And before the board meeting at 5:30, 4 o'clock for the facilities.
Chair Haggerty and members of the board, I'd ask for guidance with regards to a budget presentation. I don't believe that Ms. Shaughnessy will have significantly different information. I would like guidance from the board. Would you like us to do her to do a short presentation in the open board meeting, and then that item would be in the board meeting later, as opposed to having another budget workshop?
Do you not think that we'll need a substantive discussion again in order that would warrant a 3 o'clock meeting? I don't know. I mean, we've had today's and we've had one previous that were very thorough. But is that typical? Is it not typical? What do you think in terms of more substantive information to add?
I don't know that there'll be more substantive information to add. I think we've narrowed the budget as much as we can. In addition, I don't see any tuition and fees information changing, but we're happy. Ms. Shaughnessy and I are both happy to have an additional budget workshop should the board feel that that's necessary. That's at the pleasure of the board.
Personally, I thought we had a very good and thorough discussion today.
I did too.
I don't feel that we need to have another workshop. Now, for the purpose of the public to know.
That's where I was seeking guidance here.
That is a different matter, and I would support that. But I don't feel that the board itself.
But when we make
needs
the
to have
motion and we
another.
go to discussion, is that a good time for Ms. Shaughnessy to come up? Or do we need a separate?
I would advise her, I'd recommend that she do a shorter, not the hour, but do a shorter presentation during the presentation period of time in August. So that, again, that we have that in front of the entire board meeting. Anyone who's streaming, watching the board meeting has access to see that presentation.
Now they have access to the presentation we had earlier, right? So technically,
It was
we could go
filmed.
in there and watch that too, so we really don't need.
I'm only asking
much
for
info?
guidance. Whatever the board chooses, I'm
But there
comfortable.
was some information that I know that Ms. Sanchez wanted, and maybe if she can present that. There was something that Ms. Sanchez had asked.
Oh, it was on the outside sources, the outside, the additional expenditures. That
I
was
wrote notes on
I don't remember off the top of my head, I apologize, but it was there was some outside additional expenses I wanted more information on, just a breakdown. She can cover that. I'm comfortable with her covering that at the open meeting, the public meeting, that's fine. That gives us an opportunity to still talk and discuss it, and then ultimately, I guess, to take action.
So there'll be a
I'm okay
presentation.
with that.
You got it?
Yeah.
Will do.
Perfect.
So we will not have an extra budget workshop.
Yeah, we'll start at 4 and then have a board meeting at 5:30.
Now, today's presentation, okay. Typically, the facilities meetings have only been lasting about an hour, so I don't know if we want to post for a shorter amount of time so that there's not a gap between the two meetings. It's up to the board.
So 4:30, you're saying, maybe?
That's what they've told me, is that because we're at a point where the amount of items is less, so they don't need the full hour and a half like we originally had started doing.
Why don't we say 4:30, and then unless they say, you know what, I'm gonna need a little
Right.
bit longer, then you can just tell us all and you can post 4 o'clock.
Okay.
That's how we'll leave it. Hey, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.